I went 35 years without ever imagining that one simple family dinner could flip my entire world upside down. It started off like something out of a cozy movie. The soft flicker of candles dancing across the table, the warm glow from that vintage chandelier we'd had since I was a kid, and the smell, God, that rich, comforting aroma of Mom's beef stew that used to make me feel like I was home. But that night, it was bait. I just didn't know it yet. The setup had been perfect. 2 weeks earlier, my mom called me out of the blue. Her voice was sweeter than usual, almost syrupy. "Sophia," she said, "you should come home for dinner. It's been too long. Let's have a real family night." And I hesitated, because deep down, I already knew better. I've spent more than 10 years dealing with my parents' version of love, the kind that only shows up when they need something. But some small, fragile part of me, it still wanted to believe that maybe this time it wasn't about money or help or guilt. Maybe they really just missed me. So I cleared my schedule, postponed meetings, rearranged deadlines, drove from San Francisco all the way to Sacramento. I arrived holding on to hope like it was a fragile gift I didn't want to break. And within minutes of sitting down at that table, they shattered it completely. Parker, my younger brother, leaned back in his chair like he was in some kind of power pose. His arms crossed, this smug look plastered across his face. "Just so there's no confusion later," he said, calm as ever, "Mom and Dad want you to know now. Olivia, my younger sister, was twirling her golden hair like she was in some shampoo commercial. Her smile was smug, too, almost gleeful." I slowly put down my fork. The stew, which I had once loved, suddenly tasted bitter. "What?" I asked. My voice felt tight, dry. Mom exhaled like she was already tired of the drama she knew was about to unfold. "Your father and I finalized our will. This house, the Tahoe Villa, all of it's going to Parker and Olivia. Just like that. Like it was no big deal. Like it wasn't the emotional equivalent of a slap in the face." I turned to Dad. Maybe, just maybe, he'd say something. Anything. That it wasn't true. That it was some mistake. But he just stared into his wine glass like the answer was hiding at the bottom of it. I took a slow breath, trying not to let the rising panic show. "Why?" Parker shrugged. "You don't need it, right? You've got your company, your own place. Olivia and I need more support." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "Support," I said, voice icy. "Olivia, you've never kept a job longer than 6 months. Parker, you've changed your major so many times I've lost count. And every tuition bill, every class you dropped out of, guess who paid for that?" The room got uncomfortably quiet, the kind of silence that screams more than any argument ever could. Mom crossed her arms. "Sophia, don't be dramatic. Your father and I made this decision because we love you all. But Parker and Olivia need help building their futures. You're already stable." I laughed, but it came out harsh. "Stable? Is that what we're calling it now? I paid off your mortgage. I paid to renovate the Tahoe Villa, $40,000 in fact. I've been covering bills, repairs, and surprise expenses for years, and now I'm just excluded?" Olivia scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, so now you're keeping track? That's kind of sad, Sophia. You're loaded. Why act so stingy?" "Stingy," I said, each word like a knife. "This isn't about money. This is called being exploited." Mom's palm hit the table with a sharp smack, rattling the glasses. "Enough! You always make it about money. We did this because we care about all of you." I stared at her, at all of them, and a switch flipped. For years I had convinced myself that the sacrifices I made were out of love, that giving and giving and giving would eventually make them see me, really see me. But that night, I realized the truth. I wasn't their daughter. I was their bank account. I leaned back, hands resting on the edge of the table. Calm now, too calm. "You know what's funny?" I said, voice steady. "I thought family meant supporting each other. Turns out I'm the only one who got the memo." Parker smirked. "You're just mad because you didn't get what you wanted." I looked him straight in the eyes. "You mean basic fairness? Respect? Recognition for everything I've done for this family?" Olivia rolled her eyes again, playing the victim now. No one forced you to help, Sophia. You chose to play the hero. I shook my head. No, I chose to be the one person who cared enough to hold this mess together. Then Mom added, quieter now, but still just as cutting, love isn't measured in money. Then why? I asked slowly. Is mine the only love that came with a price tag? The silence after that was suffocating. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. I've heard enough, I said, walking toward the door. Mom stood too. Sophia, if you walk out now, don't expect to be welcome back. I stopped, hand on the doorknob. I turned back just once. I never felt welcome to begin with. And with that, I left. I didn't look back. The drive back to San Francisco was quiet. Too quiet. Just the soft hum of the tires on the freeway and my own thoughts spiraling endlessly. The headlights of passing cars blurred into streaks, like the tears I wouldn't let fall. I stared straight ahead, my jaw clenched, my heart pounding. All I kept thinking was, how did I not see this coming? I had called that house home for so long. Every bill I paid, every sacrifice I made, every time I said yes when I wanted to say no, I told myself it was for family, that one day they'd recognize the love behind it. But no, to them, I was just an ATM with a pulse. When I finally stepped into my apartment, I tossed my keys onto the counter, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed on the couch. The silence in my apartment was heavy, but it was mine. It didn't come with expectations. It didn't demand anything from me. I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my banking app. I didn't know why. Maybe I just needed to see it in front of me. Cold, hard numbers. $2,100 a month. That's what I had been sending them regularly. $5,900 for the mortgage, $600 for utilities, not even including the extras. Parker's never-ending tuition payments, Olivia's emergency vacations, the fancy holiday dinners I footed the bill for every single year, birthdays, broken water heaters, last-minute loans that were never repaid. I scrolled through transaction after transaction until the screen blurred. And then, with one decisive breath, I did what I should have done years ago. Cancel recurring payment. A confirmation screen popped up. Are you sure you want to cancel this payment? Yes, I had never been more sure of anything. My thumb tapped the screen. The words flashed back, successfully canceled. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt free. But freedom, as I learned, never comes without backlash. The first call came the next morning, Mom. Ignored. Then another, and another. By the fifth, I flipped my phone over and let it buzz quietly into the void. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and checked my messages. Mom, Sophia, I can't believe you did this. The house is struggling. How could you be so selfish? Mom again. This is not how a family treats each other. Call me back. I didn't respond. Then came a call from Dad. That one hit different. I stared at his name on the screen. In the past, I would have picked up without hesitation. But now I knew exactly what he was calling for. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened to the message. Dad, voice low, tired. Sophia, you need to reconsider. Your mother is very upset. This isn't something we can just walk away from. You're overreacting. It was just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I laughed, a bitter, hollow laugh that echoed through my quiet apartment. Is that what betrayal is now? A misunderstanding? Then Olivia called. I didn't answer. But unlike Mom or Dad, Olivia didn't even pretend to be polite. Olivia, text, pathetic. You're a petty, selfish drama queen. Olivia, do you really think you're better than the rest of us? Olivia, if you didn't want to help, you should have said so years ago instead of playing the hero. I clenched my teeth. I'd spent years supporting her lifestyle. Designer clothes, luxury vacations, spontaneous online shopping binges, all disguised as mental health breaks or creative inspiration. And now I was the bad guy? Then came Parker, and this time I answered. What? I said, my voice flat. Are you serious right now? He snapped. What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm taking back what's mine, I said, calm and clear. You're disgusting, he growled. You cut mom and dad off just because you didn't get your precious inheritance? You're nothing but a greedy leech. I blinked. For a moment, I almost laughed. The irony was too perfect. This isn't about money, I said. It's about respect. Something none of you ever gave me. You're a snake, he hissed. You think you can just walk away from this family with no consequences? Just wait. He hung up before I could respond. For a moment, I just stood there in my kitchen, phone still in hand, feeling the weight of his threat sink in. No consequences? Oh, Parker, you really thought you still had control. That night, I did something I should have done years ago. I pulled up my contact list, and one by one, I started hitting block. Mom, Dad, Olivia, Parker. Their names disappeared off my screen like smoke vanishing into thin air. I set my phone down, poured another glass of wine, and stared out the window at the city lights. It was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. 3 weeks passed. No calls, no messages, no guilt, no manipulation. I felt like I could breathe again. I got more done at work in those 3 weeks than I had in the last 6 months. I started waking up without that heavy feeling in my chest. For the first time in forever, I felt like my life was mine. But of course, the peace didn't last. On a Friday afternoon, just as I was setting up in the conference room for a client pitch, my phone buzzed with a message. Mom, Sophia, the family is having an important meeting tonight. 7:00 p.m. The old house. This is not an invitation. It's your responsibility. I stared at the message, brows furrowed. Responsibility. I could have ignored it. Should have, probably. But something in me, the same part that kept hoping they'd change, wanted to see what kind of circus they were running this time. I typed one word. Fine. At exactly 7:00 p.m., I pulled up to the house. Parker's shiny BMW was already in the driveway. Olivia's bubblegum pink Mini Cooper next to it. How symbolic. I stepped onto the porch. Before I could even knock, Mom opened the door with a smile that was about as real as plastic fruit. Sophia, she said sweetly, you finally decided to come home. I walked inside, silent. The air in the house was thick, uncomfortable, fake. Dad sat stiffly on the living room couch. Parker and Olivia were lounging like they owned the place. I pulled out a chair, sat down, crossed my legs, arms folded. So, I said, what is this about? Dad cleared his throat, trying to sound composed. We want to resolve the tension in the family. I let out a dry chuckle. Tension? You mean the fact that I stopped paying for everyone's lifestyle? Mom's voice softened, fake sweet again. Sophia, you overreacted. Your father and I were just trying to protect you from stress. Parker scoffed. Did you even think about how selfish and immature it was to cut us off like that? I clenched my jaw. I had heard enough. Olivia, arms folded, chimed in with her signature condescension. Let's be honest. You're just bitter because you didn't get the inheritance. That was it. I stood slowly, calmly, looked around at the people I once called family. I came here thinking maybe, just maybe, someone had grown up. But no, you're all still the same. Entitled, manipulative, ungrateful. Mom rose from her seat. If you walk out that door, I cut her off. I won't be back, and you won't get another cent. And with that, I walked out. No hesitation, no regret, just freedom. The drive home that night felt different. Not because I was shaken. No, not anymore. I'd already cried those tears. I'd already mourned the fantasy of having a loving, supportive family. What I felt now wasn't grief. It was fire. A quiet, steady fire burning in my chest. But when I pulled up to my apartment building, that fire turned into cold rage. Something was wrong. My front door was sealed shut, completely. A thick band of expanding foam had been sprayed all around the doorframe. Edges, lock, even the hinges. It had hardened into a solid, chalky mass. My door looked like it had been entombed. I just stood there for a few seconds, blinking. They really went there. I pulled out my phone and opened my building security app. I had installed cameras last year, mostly to keep an eye on packages. Never imagined I'd be using it for this. But there he was. Parker. Gray hoodie, baseball cap, trying way too hard not to be recognized. But I knew that lazy walk, that smug smirk as he waved the foam can around like a toy. Like he thought this was some kind of prank. He laughed at the camera. My hands trembled, not from fear, not even from shock, from fury. This was how far they were willing to go, to sabotage my home, intimidate me, try to scare me into crawling back. Wrong target. I saved the footage, took screenshots, called the police. 30 minutes later, an officer showed up, young guy trying to keep his expression neutral as I showed him the video. He cleared his throat. "Would you like to file a formal complaint?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Officer, I didn't call you here for a chat." He nodded and opened his notepad. "Okay, let's take a report." He asked for names. "Parker, my brother," I said flatly. Then I looked up. Well, not anymore. The next morning my phone rang again, this time Dad. "Are you serious?" I asked as I picked up, already knowing why he was calling. "Sweetheart, does it really have to go this far?" I scoffed. "If you're calling to ask me to drop the charges, save your breath." "It's not like that," he said quickly. "Parker, he was just upset. He didn't mean any harm." "Oh, no harm? He blocked my door shut. What if I had a pet inside? What if I had an emergency meeting the next morning?" He went quiet. I pushed forward. He did it to scare me, but it didn't work, and now he's going to face the consequences. Dad sighed heavily. "Sophia, be reasonable. Do you really want to push this that far?" I paused. Then my voice dropped, calm and sharp. $33,000. "What?" he said, confused. "That's what it'll take for me to drop the charges. 33 grand. That covers my door repair, any legal fees, and compensation for harassment. Considering how much I've already spent on you all, it's generous." He gasped. "This is extortion." "No," I replied, cold and clear. "This is a lesson in accountability." "Parker doesn't have that kind of money." "Then maybe you and Mom can help him out," I said. "You've been bailing him out his whole life. One more time shouldn't be hard." There was a pause, long and tight. "Claudine and I cut him off. "This family tore itself apart the day you all decided my only worth was in my bank account." Then I hung up. 3 days later, my bank account pinged. $33,000 transferred from my parents' joint account. No message, no apology, just the money. Silence followed. Not a word from Mom, nothing from Parker, not even a passive-aggressive emoji from Olivia. And that's when I realized something. They thought the money would shut me up, that I'd take the payoff and disappear, that they could avoid accountability by writing a check. But they were wrong, again. I stood at my newly fixed front door, fingers brushing over the polished surface. The door wasn't just repaired, it was symbolic. It meant they couldn't touch me anymore. They could send money, threats, guilt. None of it mattered. I wasn't the same person I had been just months ago. They had finally been forced to take responsibility. And it drove them insane, because they didn't just lose my money, they lost control. But it didn't stop there. Of course not. The next attack came through other people, distant relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in years, some I barely remembered meeting as a kid. Aunt Susan messaged me on Facebook, "Sophia, I'm so disappointed. Your parents gave up so much for you. How can you repay them like this?" Uncle Mark, don't let money change who you are. Family is family. You don't just walk away. Cousin Rachel, wow, abandoning your parents when they're about to lose their home? I always thought you were the kind one. I sat on my couch, scrolling through the flood of messages, my face expressionless. Mom, she had started a full-blown smear campaign. When she couldn't win through logic, she turned to guilt. She painted a new story, where I was the selfish, greedy daughter who cruelly cut off her poor, aging parents. A cautionary tale told through the lens of martyrdom. But she made one fatal mistake. She forgot that I still had the truth. So I opened my laptop. I didn't usually post much on social media, but this time, I was done being silent. I typed fast, fingers flying across the keyboard, every sentence carved out like a scalpel, precise, sharp, and impossible to twist. My post, For over a decade, I supported my parents financially. I paid their mortgage, covered their bills, funded my siblings' lifestyles, and never once asked for anything in return. I did it because I believed family meant helping each other. But when my parents finalized their will, they left everything to my siblings. When I asked why, they said, "You have your own success. You don't need it." When I pushed back, they called me selfish. When I stopped paying, they called me heartless. Now, they're telling everyone that I abandoned them, that they're on the brink of losing their home, that I'm cruel. But here's the truth. They didn't lose their home. They lost their free ride. I'm not sharing this for pity. I'm sharing it because so many people stay quiet while being used by the people who should love them most. You don't have to keep being the family piggy bank to be a good person. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal, it's self-respect. I hit post. Within an hour, the post had gone viral. Hundreds of shares, thousands of comments. Some were supportive. I've been there too. Thank you for saying what we're too afraid to. Others were predictably angry. Family is sacred. You never air this stuff out online. But I didn't care. This wasn't for them. 3 hours later, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Sophia," she snapped. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Just telling the truth," I replied calmly. "You're ruining this family's reputation." "No, Mom. You did that when you decided to turn me into the villain in your little soap opera." Her voice cracked with fury. "You'll regret this." "No," I said, "you will." And I hung up. For the first time, I had said exactly what needed to be said, and I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. 2 weeks after the post went viral, things got quiet again. Not peaceful, strategically quiet. The kind of silence that creeps in right before another storm. But this time, I wasn't afraid of it. I had received hundreds of messages. Strangers, friends, even old classmates I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to say, "I've lived this," or "Thank you for saying what I never could." Some even told me they finally cut ties with their toxic family after reading it. And that was the most unexpected part. I wasn't just healing, I was helping others do the same. But I knew Mom wasn't done, and she proved me right. One morning, I opened my email to find a message from a law firm I didn't recognize. Subject: Notice of Intent to Pursue Defamation Claim. I almost choked on my coffee. It was a 3-page PDF, dressed in all the formal legal jargon. Accusations that I had intentionally damaged the reputation and character of Claudine and Frederick Harper through malicious public misrepresentation. Malicious. Right. I forwarded it to my attorney with one line: "Please handle. Everything I posted is true." An hour later, she replied, "No basis. They're bluffing. I'll respond accordingly." I didn't flinch. I didn't call my therapist. I didn't even cry. I just got dressed, went to work, and gave the best presentation of my life. Because I was no longer living under the weight of people who only loved me when I was useful. A few days later, I got another letter, not from lawyers, from Olivia. Handwritten. Delivered to my apartment by courier. No return address. Inside was a single page. "Sophia, congratulations. You finally got what you wanted. Everyone thinks you're some brave, selfless hero. Meanwhile, the rest of us are left to deal with the consequences of your tantrum. You don't get to act like a victim after you abandoned this family. You walked away and set everything on fire on your way out. I hope the attention is worth it. But just know, when Mom and Dad are gone and you're sitting alone with your precious self-respect, you'll finally understand what you gave up. Enjoy your new life. Olivia." I reread it once, then I lit a match and watched it burn in my kitchen sink. Dramatic, maybe, but satisfying, absolutely, because she still didn't get it. I didn't give up my family. They gave up me when they decided I was only valuable when I was silent, obedient, and writing checks. And the irony? I wasn't alone. I was surrounded by more love now, genuine, honest love, than I ever had with them. My chosen family, people who respected boundaries, who said thank you without strings, who knew how to give without taking, people who saw me, not just my bank account, but the real twist, It didn't stop with me. My cousin Michelle messaged me one evening. She'd read the post, had been lurking quietly for weeks. Her message said, "Sophia." I never told anyone this, but they did the same to me. Different flavor, same toxicity. I moved to Oregon just to escape it. Thank you for saying it out loud. Then came Trevor, my second cousin. "Your dad ruined my credit when I was 21. I never said anything because I was scared. You're braver than you know." It was like someone had finally broken the dam, and the truth was spilling out from every crack. And that's when I understood something big. This wasn't just about me. It never was. It was about the pattern, this generational cycle where one person is designated the provider, and the rest feed off them like it's their birthright. It was about the guilt, the shame, the gaslighting masked as tradition or respect. It was about the people who never felt like they could say no without losing love in the process, and I had broken it, one boundary at a time. The last time I heard from my parents was on a gray Thursday in May. A single message from Mom. "Mom, your father had a minor stroke. He's recovering. Thought you should know." I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "Me, I hope he gets better. Take care." That was it. No dramatic return. No forgiveness arc. No desperate sprint back into the arms of dysfunction. Just a single clean line. And then silence. The kind of silence I'd once feared. The kind I used to think meant I was unloved, unwanted, abandoned. Now, it felt like peace. Like finally stepping out of the shadows and feeling sunlight on my skin for the first time. 6 months later, I moved. Different city, different job, new apartment, my name on the lease, my rules, my joy. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since I was a teenager. I traveled, by myself. Italy, Greece, Morocco, no itinerary, no guilt. I built friendships that weren't transactional. I hosted dinner parties where no one demanded leftovers for a struggling family member. I laughed until I cried with people who weren't secretly counting favors. I lived, truly, freely. And whenever someone asked, "What changed?" I just smiled and said, "I stopped trying to earn love that should have been unconditional."